Feeling the pressure for your ZIMSEC history paper to exam? You're not alone. Many students struggle with the complex core concepts. This video cuts through the confusion, revealing the exact critical topics you need to master to ace that paper. Stop guessing and start strategizing your success today.
Reforms whereby all individuals could enjoy political policies without udzvinyiriri and iye akabvaunza udzvinyiriri zvakaita kuti abviswe papower. Furthermore, he was a form of a believer of the ancient times and very nostalgic about it. He was reluctant about the ideology so he introduced the Catholic religion as a state religion, and the Catholic religion was reintroduced in state politics again, in which from the ancient times, during the reign of the French Revolution, it was one of the prominent factors which led to the outbreak of the French Revolution. And by now, individuals, and this improved his political arena. At Aix-la-Chapelle, France was readmitted to the concept of Europe and regained international prestige. Why? Because Louis XVIII had agreed to cede the Grand Duchy of Warsaw to the great powers. And at Aix-la-Chapelle, we observed that France was readmitted to be called that it was now a great power among other great powers, despite being defeated during the time of Napoleon. So this proved that the policies of Louis XVIII were progressive and right. Furthermore, he restored power to the church by allowing Catholicism to run schools. French army was reformed. Welcome. We want to revise the question which reads examine. This one, examine reasons for and the nature of the restored Bourbons from power in 1830. So the question is straightforward and direct. The question reviews examine. Examine is to look for positive and negative impact. But in this case, our positive impact is to evaluate reasons why the restored Bourbons fall from power. We are initiating, they say examine reasons for. We are revealing reasons why the restored Bourbons fall from power and their nature of the restored Bourbons. So, at the same time we are revealing the nature of the restored Bourbons from power, it is the very same time we are evaluating a reason why they fall from power. So in this case, we must know that the restored Bourbons, we have got two. We have got Charles X, we have got Louis XVIII. So amongst them, you must know that one of them was ultra of the ultras. One of them was an arrogant leader, and one of them was someone who was good, who used the democratic skills to remain on power. So in this case, Louis XVIII, the first Bourbon, he fell from power by natural death. Why he fell from power by natural death? Because he initiated good political, economic, and social skills or social policies to the French citizens. And at the same time, we must know that though Louis XVIII fell from power by natural death and he was not removed from power by violence, we have got Charles X, who was an ultra of the ultras, who used to say, I would rather chop wood than to rule using the Constitution of England, is initiated by Janice Richards, is initiated by T.A. Morris. This is an initiation which says he fell from power through violence and through revolution. So examine reasons for the fall. The reasons for the fall, it was for first and foremost we must know kuti tinewa tichati uyu akabva papower because he was a radical. Saka ma-reasons why akabviswa through radicalism ndeaya. Ma-reasons why ningi asikabva papower nekuda kwedeath ndeaya. Mababata kachitsotsi karipo. Saka maakuti mama kanyorerwa question interpretation era. Alright, yanga yakanzi zvoni ndandakanyora hanzi zvoni. So our question interpretation says the question demands one to review reasons why restored Bourbons fall from power, executing the fact that they deserve it, especially with the retrogressive ideas of Charles X. However, one can note that the fall of the restored Bourbons from power can be justified because of the progressive ideas of Louis XVIII. Are we together? So we have got two parts. We have got a retrogressive. We have got a progressive. So we are saying the reason why the restored Bourbons fall from power, it was because of retrogressiveness. That's the reasons and the nature. The reason and the nature of the restored Bourbons from power, we are revealing that on our affirmative side, the restored Bourbons, they fall from power because of retrogressiveness, and we initiate the reasons. However, despite the fact that the restored Bourbons fall from power because of retrogressiveness, one cannot forget that the restored Bourbons fall from power. They did not fall from power. Why? We can initiate their progressiveness for the French citizens. How to get? Kutori neimwe question inotoya chitoti retrogressive. How far true is this assertion in relation to the restored Bourbons in France? How to get? So now, as we take note of Charles X, some they call him Comte d'Artois. Some call him Comte. So we are looking at an individual who was an ultra of the ultras, who was very initiative in initiating the ancient regime type of government. So what made him to fall from power, Charles X, or what made the restored Bourbon from power? It was because of Charles X's retrogressiveness. Number one issue which we must include, because Charles X of retrogressiveness, we've got, he was an ultra of the ultras, number one. Number two, he was a form of a believer of the ancient times and nostalgic about it. Number three, he believed in the rule by divine rights of kings. Number four, his coronation ceremony was a clear sign of retrogressiveness. Number five, in his policies in 1824, he abolished the annual elections. Number six, in 1825, he passed a law to compensate the immigrants to please his victors. Number five, next number, he restored the power to the church by allowing Catholicism to run in France. The next point is, in 1827, press censorship was applied to all books in France that were used by students. Next point, in 1829, he dismissed the moderate ministers like Martignac and appointed Polignac, who believed in the divine rights of kings. Last but not least, purging in the army. The purging in the army became order of the day. Purging, it means that he was removing those who were not loyal to him. Are we together? So now I'm now explaining these points. When we are talking about the point where we say Charles X was an ultra of the ultras and his policies were retrogressive in nature, when we are explaining the fact that the policies of Charles X were retrogressive in nature, it is whereby we include the idea whereby he removed the free voting system in which the French citizens wanted. Above all, in his policies, he believed in the privileged system. The privileged system was restored again in France during the reign of Charles X. And this has made him to be a retrogressive leader. By becoming retrogressive, he was removed by revolution. Because in France, we have got different political parties. Some, they believed in in Bonapartism, some they believe in Catholicism, some they believed in Republicanism. All these political parties, which is the Bonapartists, the Republicans, the Catholics, and whatsoever, they wanted moderate reforms whereby all individuals could enjoy political policies without udzvinyiriri. And iye akabvaunza udzvinyiriri zvakaita kuti abviswe papower. Furthermore, he was a form of a believer of the ancient times and very nostalgic about it. He was reluctant about the ideology of, so he introduced the Catholic religion as a state religion, and the Catholic religion was reintroduced in state politics again, in which from the ancient times, during the reign of the French Revolution, it was one of the prominent factors which led to the outbreak of the French Revolution. And by now, individuals, they were perpetuating for Bonapartism policies or other non-prominent policies from the ancient regime times. Saka ndiri kuti vanhu vaiti aiwa ungarambe uchidzosera zvinhu zvakudhara zvatakata sei zvatakabvisa zviri bheta pamwe ukamboisawo kana mapolicies aNapoleon atori nani kana kutsvaga zvimwe pane kuti iwewe ubva watoti takutoisa privileged system yekuti tatova nefirst state, second state, third state, vanhu vakudzvanyirirwa kwaane forced labor, and this have made him to fall from power. Right together. Then the point in which you write, he believed in the rule by divine right. Piety, I would rather chop wood than to rule after the fashion of the King of England. This proved that he was a retrogressive leader. And he was a cruel leader because he failed to rule by constitution. Altogether, he failed to use the 1814 charter. By this, according to Dennis Richard, it proved that he was a retrogressive leader. Why? Because he should have ruled with the constitution as demanded by the French citizens with regards to the need and evaluations of the Allied powers. But by removing the constitution from politics, this made him to be a good candidate who was going to be removed from power through revolution, because it was one of the ideology which removed Louis XVI from power. Why? Right? We do not want the divine rights of kings. Furthermore, his coronation ceremony was a clear sign of retrogressive, because when he was installed on power, or during the day he was now becoming one of the kings in France, archbishops, they were given their posts again, and Nema priests, and this have made a church to be a state within a state, of which the French citizens they did not like it. Then furthermore, in his policies in 1824, he abolished the annual election by introducing Richelieu in 1818. Richelieu introduced what we call vote by estate. So instead for the peasants to vote on individual basis, or for the bourgeoisie, so the clergy or the clergy and those who were called the immigrants, when they casted votes, they were doubled. And above all, this have made franchise system to be possible again. Richelieu introduced the franchise system where those who pay money, they were eligible to vote. So this have made Charleston to be a retrogressive leader, and the people, they were ready to remove him from power. Then above all, in 1825, he passed a law to compensate the immigrants about 43,000 or 40,000, I forgot the actual amount. Instead for him to take this money and reform France, he took the money and give to the immigrants to any support. And this was against the French citizens, which ultimately led to his downfall. Furthermore, he restored the power to the church, allowing Catholicism to run schools. Catholicism was now an institution which was now running schools as during the time of the French Revolution, and this was against the French revolutionaries or the French Republicans. Furthermore, in In 1827, press censorship was applied in all books and in all parts of France where freedom of speech was breached, and this made him to be a retrogressive leader, which have made him to fall from power. Furthermore, he dismissed moderate ministers. For example, Martignet was a moderate minister who introduced the liberty, fraternity, and equality to all citizens. But when he removed him from power and introduced the polygynec in power, this made him to be viewed as a retrogressive leader. Furthermore, purging in the army became the order of the day, whereby people they were removed from post as long they were not supporting his ultra royalist ideology. How to get, and this have made the army to join the citizens, which have led to the 1830 revolution, which ultimately led to the downfall of Charles X from power, whom they call Comte d'Artois. Saga, despite that, because of retrogressiveness, the Restored Bourbons, they fall from power. We cannot forget the progressiveness of the Restored Bourbons during the time of Louis XVIII, whom we witnessed that he fall from power by the element of natural death. So in this case, we introduced the fact that Louis XVIII managed to sustain the Bourbons from power from 1814 to 1825. Why? He was a moderate leader who used to listen, or who used to apply what the citizens demand and what the citizens are acquiring for him to do. Furthermore, no revolution took place during the reign of Louis XVIII. Altogether. Above all, he pursued moderate policies whereby press censorship was abolished, free voting system to all citizens, and land was restored even to the peasants. And this have made him to any support from the French citizens. Above all, he tried to work with the parliament. He used the Chamber of Peers and the Chamber of Deputies, and this proved that his policies were progressive and democratic, and this attracted power and support from the French citizens, which maintained him from power. Above all, he was supported by pay-legals, those who pay tax and over him support Saka. This have made France to be progressive both economically, stabilizer. Furthermore, he paid off war indemnity, and foreign troops were evacuated from France. And it was a good move because it made France to have good relations with the other foreign countries, and this improved his political arena. At Aix-la-Chapelle, France was readmitted to the Concert of Europe and regained international prestige. Why? Because Louis XVIII had agreed to cede the Grand Duchy of Warsaw to the great powers. And at Aix-la-Chapelle, we observed that France was readmitted to be called that it was now a great power among other great powers, despite being defeated during the time of Napoleon. So this proved that the policies of Louis XVIII were progressive and right. Furthermore, he restored power to the church by allowing Catholicism to run schools. French army was reformed and used to crush Spanish liberal revolts to restore Ferdinand VII. During the time of Louis XVIII, we witnessed that the French army even improved its status to an extent that it managed to restore peace in Spain after the Spanish revolutions. Above all, he followed the middle-class road policy, e.g. railway and electrification was witnessed for the first time in France because of Louis XVIII. So it means that he had progressive ideas for the citizens in France. So, in your explanation, whenever you are asked about the Restored Bourbons in France, you must know that everything that is much more concerned with a negative perspective, it is pinned upon Charles X. Anything that is positive, it is pinned upon Louis XVIII. So we are using this equation with regards with the other question in which we have discussed earlier on. Saka kuti question E, nemamwe ndakambokupai. For example, here, for the sake of those online, we've got some of the questions you can revise using the information which have decoded here. Number one question, it says self-inflicted. How accurate is this view in light of the demise of the Restored Bourbons in France? The second question says, to what extent was Charles X demise in 1830 as a result of his unwavering support of the old order? So this is the same question, and this question is focused on Charles X. However, why, another question say, why Charles X unable to retain French throne by 1830? The other question says, why did Charles X alienate with the different groups in France? Which means why many people hated him. It is because he was retrogressive. Another question says, compare the reign of Charles X and Louis XVIII in France between 1815 and 1830. This question denotes want to review similarities and differences between Charles X and Louis XVIII. I've recorded the question. You search on my playlist here on YouTube. Also, why did Charles X reign end in a revolution? We have got the same question. Then however, we say no, but despite Louis XVIII reign did not end in a revolution. Ndo maitira munoita vanhu saka apa taita sei tapedza ndo maissues acho kana mune mubvunzo mobvunza.